Hey everybody, how is it going? It is January 17th, 2024. This is the RambleCast. I'm your host, Cody Toombs, and with me I have a Corbin Davenport.
Hello.
So, wow. There was a week. There was a week. Things have happened. Sometimes I say that a lot. So companies did things. Well, are we jumping straight to news? I don't know.
We can.
Did you want to banter a little first?
No, I'm just tired and cold.
No, F off, dude. Just go straight through it.
North Carolina decided it's winter again. It was like in the 50s for a while, and last night it dropped down to like 14 degrees. That's cool.
Ooh. Yeah, okay, that sucks.
It's gonna get cold again tonight. Hopefully my power doesn't go out. Other people's power are going out around me, but so far I'm okay. I've got all my USB batteries charged up if the need arises, and I have sweaters, and unfortunately my dog doesn't have a sweater right now. I probably should have thought about that, but that's okay. She can be wrapped up in blankets like a taco.
Yeah, that is pretty much the best solution for most animals anyway.
Mm-hmm. Got it up.
Yeah, and I'm not in entirely different circumstances. It's so far Oregon has been hit really hard with snow and ice and the whole nine. Somehow, the little pocket that I live in has been able to stay just rainy. Like, it's cold, it's unpleasant, but we're not down to freezing, which has been awesome. There have also been power outages not too far away, but they didn't hit us. So, hooray! Yeah, so far I've been using forecasted docs, Cody. I mean, you guys already know what city I live in. It's close enough.
I don't.
That's fair.
I'm very forgetful. So that's the main reason. I might have said it before. I don't know.
But yeah, tell us what city. I live just outside of Roseburg. If you can find Roseburg on a map, which isn't that hard. Well, it is. It's hard enough. Anyway, you're gonna come egg the home right now, dude. You've seen the price of
That's
eggs.
Fair.
Bring it. I'll use them.
This is what Cody gets instead of getting swatted. It's just like faint sound of eggs outside. Wait a minute, what's going on out there?
To be fair, somebody can successfully throw an egg far enough to hit my house. You've got an arm. But why bother traveling to Oregon? Oregon has its beautiful moments. In fact, I found a couple days ago, and this is actually dead serious. I think I found the only place in the entire state that was crystal blue skies and sunny. And that's actually not a joke. In a second, I will share the image. If I can find... I like this one. So, Corbin, if you're watching the stream, there it is. Now, granted, the location I found was up on top of a mountain above the level of clouds, except for the little bit of cloud that you can kind of see creeping over the far end of that valley. But yeah, I found the one and only place in the entire state that I could have gotten a sunburn if I was willing to hang out long enough. Hoopy.
North American Bigfoot Center.
That's fair. Hoopy, you live in Oregon, but I'll tell you, Getting anywhere near me, that's still travel. You'd have a 3.5 to 4 hour drive. But yes, it is a very Portland is a very underrated foodie city. It is, God, it's got some great food in that city. Austin, you don't associate Portland with Oregon because it's so different. Yes, and most people agree, which is why you have the state of Idaho trying to consume 80% of Oregon, because everybody seems to think that Portland should be its own state and the rest of Oregon should F off and die.
Because like what? Yeah, Idaho wants it. Because what does Idaho have? Nothing. What are they good for?
Idaho is good for the memes.
That's true.
Well,
no, we already have Ohio for that. We don't need too many meme states.
Honestly, and I say this with the craziest level of sincerity, Idaho is the only place that actually makes Texas and Florida look sane. That is an accomplishment. It is wild to see the crazy stuff that happens in Idaho. There is possibly literally nothing redeeming about that state's politics, but it is what it is.
Well, speaking of Idaho, Samsung announced new phones today.
Wow.
That has everything to do with Idaho.
There are jokes I'm gonna make, but maybe not here. Anyway, yes, it happened. Yeah. The S24 is live.
Samsung announced the S24, S24 Plus, and S24 Ultra, and they are almost the same phones as last year. I was trying to write a editorial about this, but I wasn't. It was coming out increasingly incoherent, so I decided against it. But I was a little bit upset that they didn't do more with the base S24 and S24 Plus again this year. Those phones have been almost frozen for the past 2 to 3 years. And if you go back to, like, I think it was the S21 where they changed the camera setup and they made the main camera better but the telephoto worse, so that was kind of a side grade. So if you keep going back, that's about like 4 or 5 years of like basically the same phone. But it does have the new, this year's Snapdragon chip in it, so it's ever so slightly faster. Samsung is guaranteeing 7 years of Android OS updates and security patches now, which is good. That is actually Apple tier. I'm going to continue hoping they would do more, because these phones are a lot of money, but 7 years is probably the point where like most people have switched to something else, either just because after that period of time the phone's probably busted up. And what else? They have, because you have to now, most of the announcement was about AI stuff, and Samsung has partnered pretty extensively with Google. Google announced their Gemini AI model. I think that was November or December. And their AI model, kind of the selling point for it was that there were a few different versions of it. And some of those could run on, big servers. Some of them could run on device, on smartphones and tablets. So Samsung has taken those models and brought them to the S24 series. So there's some like text autocomplete stuff in messages. There's some camera features. There's like a thing where you can like select an object in a picture and like move it around, that kind of stuff. So
a lot of the stuff that Google announced a few months back.
Yeah, I believe so. I probably forgotten most of what people talked about, but that's fine. So yeah, the new phones, they're the same price as last year, which is pretty good, except the Ultra, I believe it is $100 more than last year. Still a lot of money, and again, I'm still kind of frustrated with, one of the reasons I kind of just went iPhone at this point was because I was buying Samsung's base S phone because that's the size I wanted, but they just refused to bring any improvements from like the Ultra down to those phones. Like the Ultra got the S Pen 2 years ago. It got, it's gotten like higher quality camera sensors each year. That now it's got a 200 megapixel main sensor, I think, or that might just be the telephoto. One of them is 200. And none of those have trickled down to the cheaper phones, which is unfortunate because I don't have $1,200 to spend on a smartphone. Well, I do, but it would be irresponsible. And more importantly, I don't want a big giant phone, which is what the Ultra is. So, I really would have liked to see them bring some improvements down. I know not all of it is feasible because, like, especially with larger camera sensors, like, it is physically bigger. It is harder to get that in a smaller phone, but I'd like something. I don't think that's a big ask, especially in light of, this is sort of what I was trying to get the point across, but then it kind of fell apart when I brought up the iPhone 15 last year. That was a pretty big jump for the base iPhone. Apple brought the main camera from the 14 Pro down to the 15, and also brought the like different screen design with the dynamic island and stuff down. And that's nice, but the cameras on the main S phone, I believe, were already 50 megapixel, and that's what the iPhone 15 has. So basically, I'm just saying I wish Samsung would have brought more improvements to the smaller phones instead of forgetting them again, but they forgot them again. So
yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to find where the expectation should lie with Samsung's phones. Obviously,
or just any phones.
Yeah,
like it is like, this is what I was kind of like wrestling with, and maybe this is what I should talk about at some point instead, is like where you draw the line between, like, I want substantial changes every once in a while, and like I want a phone that is pretty like a mature hardware and software platform and like pretty stable experience, because that's the phones I can sit here complaining like, oh, I wish they brought more camera stuff down, but like at the end of the day, this is a phone that it's good. Like, I'm sure most people buying this phone, fine, it's a good phone. It's got 7 years of support. That's really nice. So it's like it's a little bit nitpicking, but also, again, I would kind of hope there would be, where there's room for something that's not iteration, I'd like to see it. Obviously, I'm not expecting like folding crazy screens at this price point, or nor would I want that on a phone that needs to be waterproof and stuff.
Yeah. So one of the things I do kind of miss a little bit about Samsung's older product lineup, there was this kind of somewhat commonly understood thing where they would try things with the Note. Like, the Note would come out and it was the experimental phones, in a sense. Like, it wasn't that experimental. What was really happening 9 times out of 10 was they'd ship a Note. It would have like the highest end specs for everything that they could stick into it. And then 6 months later ish, they would ship the rest of the S lineup, and hey, look at that, it's getting a lot of the stuff the Note had. So it wasn't really that different. it wasn't that experimental, but there was at least a period in time where the Note would sometimes get things that didn't show up in the S series. And I kind of like the idea of there being one phone that was sort of their I guess the highlight phone, like the true top of the line flagship, not just what can we safely stick in there, but can we try something special.
Right.
And Google
it was like it was
ahead.
almost like a little bit more of like a, I know it's kind of fits more often to use smartphones in like a car analogy, because they are very much like cars now, but it was kind of more of like a concept car, closer to that, where it was like, hey, what weird stuff can we try here?
Yeah.
Wasn't quite that way, because it still needed to be a mass market smartphone, but something.
And I would argue that Google was actually kind of good about this, though good is maybe a relative term, because a lot of Google's experiments were bad. The Pixel 4. But yeah, the it does feel a little bit like, well, a lot like Samsung's. I don't want to say phoning it in. Like, there's nothing they're doing wrong here. It's just the the S24 is kind of like the iPhone 15.
Yeah, these are like it needs to be their boring phone. They have the fold and the flip if you want something kind of more out there. But yeah, the base phones are kind of just,
yeah,
they're the phone. You want the new brick that will load your TikToks. You get this one.
Yeah. And thank you guys for calling out the thermometer. That really was something special. I still don't know that I've ever actually used it. Like, literally, I don't think I even tried it.
I think Google needs to bring back the squeeze gesture.
Oh, please, no. No, I
bring
actually
back the squeeze. Was that only on? Oh yeah, that was on the Pixel like 2, and then a couple ones after that.
Yeah. Yeah,
I remember, because I didn't have it on my Pixel 1, and then I got the 3A, and that did have the squeeze, and it was kind of silly. But
I get why people like it, but I hated it because I triggered it by accident all the time.
Yeah, I had to like lower the
well, what bothered me
sensitivity.
is, yeah, I had to change the sensitivity, but the thing is, I don't know what it was. Like, if maybe their sensitivity settings were just very inconveniently placed or something, but the sensitivity I needed to lower it to in order for it to not have a bunch of false detections was it. The jump between the setting I had to set it to versus where I had to set it to so that I didn't have to squeeze until it literally hurt my hand.
Mm-hmm. We were like, am I gonna break my phone doing?
Yeah, like those were next to each other, and so basically it was useless to me, because the only way I could ever trigger it like intentionally trigger it, was to squeeze it way too hard, to the point that it was just like, why am I squeezing it this hard? I can just tap on the screen and have it working. Yeah, it was pointless to me. Anyway, but yeah, the S24, it just feels like the iPhone 15 this year. Like, these are the two most popular phones, or will be the two most popular phone models in the world. And both of them basically just had nothing. Like, it, it's not that they didn't update some stuff, but the updates were pretty minimal. They were minor. Or mostly minor. I mean, yay, we've got Wi-Fi 7 support, and it's going to support Bluetooth 5.3. And and the 7 years of updates. Like, they're nice things here, but this is pretty minor stuff, all things considered. And they're not really trying anything big. They're not changing up the cameras in particularly significant ways. I mean, it's going to be a great phone and all. It's just not that exciting. And I don't know that I could complain about that. Like, sometimes you just don't make exciting products anymore. And that's kind of the point. I mean, when's the last time that a desktop computer came out and everyone was like, ooh, this is so exciting. It's got tons of amazing changes. Nobody wants that. Everyone wants it to be a good, reliable, high-performance computer.
I actually really like my Mac Mini, but it is very funny that it is in the same exact frame that Apple has used for over a decade. It's like, wow, this exciting new computer. Wow, it looks exactly like the Mac Mini in my closet that I got while I was in high school.
Yeah.
It's indistinguishable.
If it weren't for the fact that one of them is more scratched up than the other, you probably couldn't really tell the difference without looking at, I'm assuming, the ports on the back. I'm betting those are a little different.
Yeah, I think my older one had more like USB-A ports, and this has 2 Thunderbolt, I think. But yeah. Austin said, did Samsung give a timeline for the updates? Are they skipping monthly security updates after X years? I didn't see anything about that. They might keep doing the thing where they'll switch to quarterly after a while. But I'm not sure.
And it's possible that they may not actually confirm their schedule right away. Like Samsung's, and Google does this too, but Samsung's kind of got a real history for being like, yeah, we're just gonna wait like a month before we actually disclose a lot of these plans. Or they disclose them to like business partners first, the companies that are going to do big deployments, and then it's sometime later that the public gets to hear about it.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. Anyway, as you brought up, the one thing that really did get not all of the attention, but certainly was a big part of it, was the AI stuff. And in particular, Google Google didn't jump on stage. Well, okay, actually, I can't say that. I didn't watch the presentation. I don't know. But I get the impression that they really hyped up Google's new Circle to Search feature, which Google has also kind of co-announced that they're going to be bringing it to the S24, of course, but also the Pixel 8 and 8 Pro. No other Pixels, just those two, because apparently old Tensor was just not cool enough.
Can't do it.
Cannot do it. Samsung missed the opportunity to Squircle to Search.
Squircle to Search. Yeah, that'd be pretty good.
I'm dead, bro. That is too good. Oh god, that actually is killing me. Anyway, so the thing that jumps out at me, like as I was reading this blog post for the Circle to Search, I'm telling you, like I almost want to call it Squircle to Search now. The thing I got as I was reading this blog post is it's Google Lens, and before that it was Google on Tap. Or Google Now on Tap, whatever.
Google Now on Tap, yeah.
Yeah. It's the same feature. So for anyone who didn't see this, it's a pretty straightforward thing. If basically whatever you have on screen, you can just activate this Circle to Search feature, and you can draw a line or a circle around an object, or you can squiggle on, draw a little squiggle on top of the object. Whatever. Mm-hmm. It'll just kind of figure out what it thinks you mean, and it'll turn it into a search. Or you can give it a context to what you'd like to search, like in this video that's playing now. What can I put this on for a condiment? Or why is this thing popular? Stuff like that. Austin, You're positive it was just a rebrand to say AI? I mean, it absolutely is. Granted, they're obviously sticking some amount of like, I don't want, not necessarily Bard, but one of their AI technologies. They're obviously kind of slapping in here for sort of the speech processing aspect of it, but this is just a feature that we had. I don't know what the time frame is, but Now on Tap was what, like 7 years ago?
It was because I checked because I was writing the article about this. It was 2015.
Wow, I got close.
It was, I think it was Android Marshmallow. But yeah, I was reading about this. I don't think I read the entire blog post that they ended up publishing afterwards. I was writing this based on info they sent me ahead of time, and it didn't seem like this uses like any they didn't name drop like the Gemini AI in this, so I don't actually know if this uses any kind of like, to what extent this is on device AI, because there's a like text reading component which you can do on device, like we've been doing that for a decade. That's not hard. And then there's the other part where you're selecting parts, and it seems like that's just sort of sections that often runs that through Google Lens, so that isn't on device either. That's Google Lens checking all the images they've indexed. So I don't really know what this is using. Yeah, I don't know if it would come to other devices. I would hope so, because it doesn't seem like anything that needs specialized hardware, because again, the hard part is the Google Lens stuff that Google does in the cloud. Maybe this will be, I don't know, it'd be kind of weird. Maybe this will be a situation where it's like a Google One thing, because they did that with Google Photos with the Magic Eraser, where if you had a Pixel, it's on device and you get it, at no extra cost. But other devices, it runs in the cloud, and is part of Google One. So,
yeah, my hunch is for power saving purposes, I could see why this probably would be a thing that runs on device for obviously those devices that can support it. But I'm curious how much there is even to run on device, because logically what this is probably doing, I'm guessing, but you already mentioned the like reading text. That's basic OCR stuff. I'm guessing the rest of it has to just be like object detection. And even if it is, like, what is that accomplishing? They still have to take this portion of an image and upload it to Google servers. They're not doing like a worldwide search on your device. They're not doing a device or an object search in some sort of way on device. That doesn't make sense. It's impossible. They have to send part of the image to Google in order to do the search. And on-device object detection might narrow a few of the, might shave a few bytes off the upload, but that's about it. Like, it's not going to make that big of a difference, and I'm not sure how much performance you really need for that. So, yeah, I don't understand why this requires any on-device AI, unless this is literally just, I think for the predictable reason, they need to tell everyone that they have to update to phones with onboard AI, or like an NPU. I mean,
yeah.
And I also don't understand why the old Tensor chips aren't good enough. That's one thing that's really bothered me about a lot of this stuff since the 8 came out, the Pixel 8. A whole lot of it is really, there's been a lot of narrative that the Tensor 3 is so much better and more powerful than the previous Tensor chips. But Google kind of was selling the previous 2 generations of Tensor chips on the idea that they're going to get other AI features in the future, and that kind of never happened.
Yeah, I would assume it's a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B, where it's probably maybe less capable, but also I'm sure in like 6 months it will show up there.
Oh yeah.
That
Well,
that would be my assumption.
this feature, and I'm sure a lot of others are.
Definitely should be there from day one though. Yeah, because like this is a I don't know $500, $600, $800 phone. I don't know how high up you can get on the Pro, but
About over 1,000 with storage options at least. But yeah. So anyway, I mean, credit to Google for a let's say an improved interface for what used to be the on tap features. I mean, this is still basically just Google Lens, but maybe done a little bit better. But that's not saying a lot. Like, this just feels like the same feature rebranded. I don't know. Do you have any other thoughts on this?
nope.
Okay, good. Then, while we're on the subject of AI, let's talk about Copilot Pro.
Oh boy, I have to remember what I wrote about this. Oh, go away. I tapped on I had Samsung's YouTube channel open because I was watching the S24 video.
Oops.
Hoopy said the cynic in me says only launching on the Pixel 8 must have been some concession to get Samsung to launch, promote this, or do whatever to be the Tensor compatible or such. Yeah, I'm sure that's part of this. That is one of the interesting things that's been going on with Samsung and Google is over the past couple of years they have been integrating a lot more, and there's been a lot more cross promotion. Like now the Galaxy Watch is like the only like Wear OS watch that matters. It doesn't really seem like Fossil is doing a lot. Mobvoi is kind of still over in the corner making their weird watches. And they've kind of slowly been going back on like the Galaxy Store and stuff.
I just had the craziest thought. Okay, I know that you obviously saw this pop up in this was on my Discord. The Google engineer that posted that that all of Google's senior VPs and C-suite VPs, all of these people are clueless, boring, they don't have any fresh ideas, blah blah blah. Did you see that?
No.
Okay.
I think I understand now.
Yeah, it's enough of a summary, you get the idea. In case anyone wants to see this, quick post there. And it's a short read for anyone that wants to see it. I just had the craziest thought. The behavior Google has had over the last, let's say, year and a half, it is exactly the same behavior companies have when they're trying to, quote unquote, boost their value ahead of a sale. What if Google is trying to sell to Samsung?
No, they wouldn't do that.
I'm totally kidding, of course, but it is a funny thought. It is a hilarious thought that Google is trying to optimize operations, lower costs, and pitch itself as an acquisition target for Samsung. I would absolutely lose it if that ended up happening.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're just. It is kind of funny that that's also the way companies just need to act all the time if they're publicly traded. It's just, hey, make yourself seem more important than you actually are. Please do that for all of eternity, and also do layoffs. Thank you.
Yeah. Which, of course, also speaking of publicly traded, can any of the companies that I'm currently investing in actually do something right and boost their value? Please, thank you. That's all. Anyway, so Copilot Pro, tell us more.
Yeah, so last year Microsoft started rolling out AI features in Office, like Word and Excel and stuff. And that was only available to a few companies. It was not available at all to normal home users. And then a couple months ago, they allowed more companies to use it. And then this week, they released Copilot Pro, which is the user version of this. So now anyone can sign up for this and use the generative AI powered stuff in Word, Excel, Copilot. Basically, in Word, this adds like basic drafting stuff, like, write this and it goes into the Word document. In PowerPoint, you can ask it like, make a different template, or, put text here, or, reorganize everything on this slide to do this thing. And then I think on Excel, you can do stuff like asking questions based on the data in the sheet, which seems kind of cool. I don't use Excel nearly enough, but maybe that's cool. And then in Outlook, there's like some email drafting stuff. You can kind of what you would expect there. It also unlocks GPT-4 language model in the Copilot chat. So you can use that there. It also gives you more boosts in the like Microsoft's image generation thing, which is just a different front end for DALL-E. Used to be called Bing Image Creator. Now I think it's Microsoft Designer. They're calling it. So a lot of stuff. It's also $20 a month, and that is per user. So that is kind of a big leap when Microsoft 365 for a single person, I think, is still $7 a month. So like all of the, like a terabyte of OneDrive storage plus all the Office apps is $7, and this is 20. And I've written about before how like Microsoft 365 is like crazy cheap. Like that is like one of the best values in like tech subscription world. That's what I pay for. And this is a little bit different than what businesses still get, unfortunately. The main thing that's missing here is, I forget what it's Microsoft Graph is what companies get to use, which is where kind of like everything about your account gets fed into like this shared model thing, and you can ask. So like one of the things that the corporate version of this can do is you can just open up Copilot chat and be like, hey, who emailed me last week? And can you pull up their contact info? And it can like go reach into like your Outlook and do stuff. And none of that stuff is working for normal users yet, is my understanding. So kind of a lot of the potential use cases for this, where you just, want like a virtual assistant that knows like everything in your Microsoft world and able to answer questions and move data around, that's not as helpful. And Hoopy brought up OpenAI stuff. So the interesting thing here is that this is $20 a month. ChatGPT Plus is also $20 a month. And ChatGPT Plus lets you use GPT-4. And their thing has web search now, which works similarly to Copilot. It's not exactly the same. Copilot can read more pages, and their subscription also lets you use their version of DALL-E. And ChatGPT at this point has a much better mobile app than Microsoft does. Microsoft Copilot on phones is just a web wrapper, basically. The ChatGPT app is, at least on iOS, is native. I assume it's the same on Android, or it's like a similar-ish framework. But it's very well built. It's got like shortcut integration. It's got a voice assistant built into it. So, although the interesting thing with the API, and this is what I was talking to Cody about before the stream was with if you're just using OpenAI's APIs for GPT, that's just paid based on usage. So if you have like a project that you're using the GPT for, or any of the other models for, you can just pay based on how much you use it. And for some use cases, that might be like you're paying a couple cents a month. Some others might be more expensive. So doing everything through either the ChatGPT website / app, or in Microsoft's case, doing it through Copilot and the Office apps, that might end up cheaper. I was going back and forth on trying one of these, and I did sign up for ChatGPT Plus. So I'm trying that out and see if I still want it in a month. But I think that is definitely interesting that there's a lot of overlap with that, and Microsoft's thing doesn't really let you hook into APIs at all. This is very much meant for like more like fully integrated with their apps.
Yeah, that would not that I would necessarily make huge use of the APIs right away, but just having that ability to me feels way more important.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's live yet, but Microsoft even said that like they have their own. So like one of the other things we get with ChatGPT subscription is the ability to use and create custom. They call them GPTs. They're just like ChatGPT, but you put extra instructions and data into them beforehand to make them behave a certain way. And you can allegedly also build that in Microsoft Copilot with this. So it is very similar until you get to the API stuff, and then it's like, yeah, you either got to use OpenAI's, or I know Microsoft has their own like Azure stuff for this, but OpenAI's APIs are really easy to use. I did do a post about something I made. I wanted to try making something, so I'll put this in the YouTube chat. Oh no, that's the wrong button I just did. Okay. My initial use for the API is that I'm using the GPT-4 Vision API, and I made a very basic Chrome extension where if I right click on an image, it will send that URL to the API and generate alt text for like screen readers from the image. Because I have to type those for work at least several times a day, and it gets annoying. And even though it only takes me a couple seconds, it's still something I have to do every day. And that's like one thing that AI is pretty good at right now, in comparison to everything else I do for my job that AI is really bad at, like writing. So that was a fun thing I made. I might try to release that in some capacity eventually, because I haven't seen one of those that just like takes an OpenAI key. I was looking on the Chrome Web Store. I found a couple of similar things, but they're like connected to separate products that like have their own subscription and stuff. But I'm not trying to like, I don't know if that can be published, because I think during the review process, like they generally expect to be able to try it. I don't know. But yeah, so that was a fun thing I made. I'm using it. That's pretty cool. But I am also trying the ChatGPT Plus subscription. And I might have more thoughts about that later, but I just did it yesterday, so haven't used it a ton yet.
Fun. Yeah, at the moment I'm not digging into any AI stuff, but we shall see.
Yeah. And I do like that my alt text thing, because they have a cool function where it can downsize the image for you before it feeds it into the AI model to make it cheaper. It cost me like I can do a couple images with that for like 1 cent, so that's pretty good.
Yeah, that's something. Cool. So, yeah, I don't know. Right now, like, I don't have any particular use for this.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I could probably try to force some use out of it for the writing I do, but I just can't see why.
It's so bad at writing, dude.
Yeah.
It's horrendous. Like and it's not even that, like, it's just, very corporate gushy writing, and even when I try to customize it, it like does not accept my instructions very well. Even when using GPT-4, which is supposed to be the good one, like I was trying to use it to like summarize stuff, and I was like, do not use this word, don't do it, and you never believe what word it kept using. Like, just very simple, find a different word for this, and it would not do it.
Wow.
It's just, and it's, inconsistent outputs. Again, maybe if I, kept working on it, maybe, but it's like, this is where the AI stuff starts to break down, where you get people like super invested in what's called like prompt engineering is the popular name for it, where you're just like sitting there like tweaking the input constantly to try to make it do what you want more reliably. And and it's like, at a certain point you should just do the thing yourself, because this is not working well, and it's eating up so much time trying to get this to work consistently. So
Yeah. Yeah, the fun of AI. It's fun coincidence. I was just watching YouTube videos from my subscriptions, and I'm months behind. But I got to an Adam Conover podcast episode where they basically dogged on AI and crypto. And while he had a shocking number of terrible takes, I mean, I already don't think Conover's necessarily got everything together, but this was an unusually bad episode. It was, the one thing they were incredibly dead on about is AI is actually horrible at writing. And in general, it's kind of horrible at generating something that is supposed to be kind of like a new or finished product. It is good for some stuff, but yeah, you're never going to get anything particularly I don't want to say polished, because it's polished in its own specific way, but it's not really good quality.
Yeah.
And
The most use I've found out of all of these things still is searching for something where I know like I can find it, but it's gonna take me looking at like 3 or 4 web pages first. Like some weird thing with like, I need help with this JavaScript line, or how do I get to this part in this video game level? Like, those are all things that I know I can find myself in 2 minutes, but maybe I don't want to go to 2 minutes. I don't want to deal with terrible.
This could take you
fandom
15 seconds.
Website. I have to click exit on 5 pop-ups. That kind of stuff. Again, it's really great at the alt text stuff. It's pretty good at like data conversion. I've used it a couple times where I'm like, here's a PDF with some specs. Please turn this into like a CSV file so I can do something else with it. And it's like, all right, I got you. So it's, that's my, and also I've used the image generation on the spacebar a couple times for like the featured image when I don't have like a good picture or something to use, but that's really it. And I, unless I find other use cases, I don't think the $20 per month is going to be a good, worthwhile investment for me. So
yeah. So let's see. Well, yeah, that's about all I have to say on that. Shall we move on?
Sure.
So for those who don't like Apple topics, I'm just gonna tell you now, the whole rest of this stream is dedicated to Apple topics. There are many, and if you are a big Apple fan, you're also not gonna like a single one of the Apple topics we're about to hit. because every single one is bad for Apple. Warning given. So let's start off with possibly one of the funniest. The Vision Pro, $3,500. The Vision Pro is not going to have Netflix.
App for Netflix.
Yeah, it won't have a dedicated app or experience for Netflix. Though I would argue that this is very possibly it won't happen right away, but give it a few months, maybe give it a year. Let's see if Netflix changes its tune. Though I don't see a reason it has to, because there won't be enough Vision Pros out there to matter. They're making, if I remember, 80,000 of them, and I'm assuming at most half of those will be people who really want to watch Netflix on it. At most. So 40,000 people who are disappointed, who are already Netflix subscribers probably. Yeah, I don't think it's going to be that impactful that Netflix is skipping out. But anyway, so just to quickly summarize this, Netflix did not give a reason why, but they have confirmed that they are not planning to launch an app for the Vision Pro. And in fact, they're also going to block their current iPad app from running on the Vision Pro. Reasons for this could vary, but the hunch that I have seen mentioned, I think Corbin, you may have been the one that said this, and I think it's probably dead on. Netflix and Apple have been kind of at each other's throats over in-app purchases for a long time. And this is very likely Netflix just kind of giving them a gentle middle finger, basically saying, this isn't going to hurt us, we don't care, and we can screw you over on your big expensive new device.
Yeah, I mean, like, this is the result of Apple being very pushy about access to their platform, and some companies aren't even willing to put up with that for the number of users. Like, we've seen that from Epic. Like, they were kind of okay to go home without that money. But this is an entirely new platform that does not have the user base of iPhones or iPads. So that's going to be a much harder sell for the companies who don't really love Apple all that much right now. And there's an increasing number of those, and Netflix is one of them. And Hoopy mentioned the Netflix thing where they supposedly won't certify devices with less than 100,000 in sales, or I don't know if it's 100,000. It is some number like that, but that would not really be an issue here, because they're not really. It's just an iPad. Like, there's not really like they're building for it in this. It's pretty similar to their other platforms. I don't know if that would necessarily be an issue. I mean, it might be, but
I can see where that would factor in. But to be fair, that's going to be, let's pretend we're a year out from when Apple launches a Vision Pro 2, or it may be a non-Pro model, whatever. So I feel like it's safe to say that this number might technically be entirely accurate and relevant now, but it might not be in a year's time. That's probably going to change. But setting even that aside, I kind of don't feel like this is Netflix sort of pulling a policy decision, because they're saying that to Anchor, Nebula, obviously, like, they're projectors, companies that make random devices that are sort of the extra not novelty things, but they're targeting markets that are just not going to sell very many, and they're targeting markets that their devices are probably not the highest quality in the first place. Netflix doesn't care about dealing with those for reasons. It's fairly obvious. People don't even care about Netflix quality on most of those things.
Right.
So the Vision Pro is not falling into that. This to me, I mean, maybe Netflix would be using that as part of their reasoning, but in practical terms, this is definitely, this is more about Netflix kind of giving a middle finger to Apple.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah. Hoopy brought up, it might be more of a like a PR angle. Like, that's definitely possible. I think it's more just like they're kind of tired of Apple shenanigans, and the Vision Pro is ultimately like not going to have that many users right now, so it doesn't matter. Like I've even seen like some app developers who are normally like super jazzed about Apple being like, this wouldn't be an issue for Netflix, but a lot of them are like, I'm not going to publish publish an app until like I can get one to test on, and that might be a while because it's, you know, expensive. That wouldn't be an issue for Netflix, but it is, you know, another reason why there's gonna not be a lot of apps on day one. It's just very niche platform right now, very expensive. And the thing that is interesting to me is that they explicitly will not allow the iPad app to run when the Vision Pro is designed for that to work pretty well. So that does tell me this is a it's a like FU kind of thing.
So one, just a quick follow up on the point about other developers. I mean, I've seen that take, but I've also seen a whole lot of people popping up with kind of slightly varied versions of Apple has not been good at launching new platforms. When you, at least not for third-party developers. If you look at Apple TV, the only apps that quote do well on there are streaming apps. So it's major companies. There aren't really a lot of like smaller indie developers who are doing well on Apple TV. This mostly the same goes with the Watch. The Apple Watch, like if you go ask, I'm making up a number here, but I bet if you go ask like a huge group of people with an Apple Watch, like 80% of them don't have anything on there that's not an Apple app or feature. I'm sure there's some portion of people who have their particular favorite exercise app or their favorite this thing or that thing. But
mine is just Authy. That's it. It's the Apple apps and Authy. That's it.
Yeah, exactly. That's, you know, that's kind of the way that I suspect this is for a lot of people. And so again, that's the TV and the Watch. These are two of Apple's biggest products that are not the iPhone and iPad. Even if you look to Android Auto, or sorry, not Android Auto, but CarPlay. I mean, there's music streaming apps for CarPlay, but beyond that, I don't think I've heard of anyone really doing well in any sort of like smaller product, like smaller apps or developers. Yeah, there's just, Apple has not been launching good platforms for third-party developers, and pretty much everyone has come out saying, you know, we'd love to develop for the Vision Pro, but we just know that we're not going to make it. Like, it's not going to be worth our time or our costs to get into this market, and it's really only going to be for larger companies that have, you know, that are either pushing maybe not AAA games, but like higher budget games. It's going to be there for companies that have sort of business purposes why something like this is good for them. It's not going to be very good for the smaller developers. And yeah, I mean, that totally makes sense.
Yeah, and I definitely, not that this is like a dig on the Vision Pro, because this is what they should be doing, but I do get the impression that like probably most of the apps there are going to be, they're there because they're already like Swift UI apps or whatever that are trivial to to get running on there in an okay form. Which again, that's what should have been done, but I don't know how much dedicated work is going to go into this. I do think I am interested to see like what this actually gets used for as a Gen 1 product, because I'm still looking at this and thinking like Apple is so far not super willing to take full advantage of like virtual reality and augmented reality. Like a lot of their demos and stuff is like just flat pane in front of you, or like flat panes around you, where it's sort of like the utility of a multi-monitor setup, but like you don't have to have all this extra crap around. So it's kind of iPad on your face that is less usable than an iPad, in the way that like probably are not going to bring this out in public, that kind of thing. I don't know. I'm interested to see what the pitch will turn into, because I don't think I've really seen it yet. I don't know. Like I couldn't work on this any more than I can like work on an iPad, which is like just barely, and only for some stuff. Because again, this isn't like a Mac. I can't put VS Code on this. There's no, there's not going to be any Steam games or VR games or anything else on there. So,
well, there's a lot we don't know. Yeah. Like, we don't know that it won't be able to do that stuff. We just, they just haven't really shown that off as a feature, and they haven't indicated that it will be supported, which is kind of concerning. But I wouldn't be surprised if there's a game development kit somewhere out there for this already, and it may already support existing things. I don't know. That is one of the things that does worry me, is they really did not talk at all about the gaming aspect, and that's confusing.
I'm sure it's going to be bad. It just it's just like every other effort with gaming. It's like, is it an iPhone game? No, then you're not going to be able to play it, or it's going to be real bad. Possibly,
yeah. So dragging this back into the realm of Netflix, what I think we're seeing here is Netflix has this beautiful opportunity to say, you know what, the numbers will not affect us, and anyone who it's not hurting us if our customers cannot watch content on one single device out of all the devices that they surely have in their homes. So we don't really care. And again, yes, they can watch in the browser, but whatever. Yeah. Whereas Apple, in order to make the Vision Pro successful, like, their pitch right now is literally, this is the best home entertainment experience. Supposedly, it obviously won't be, but let's just pretend for a second that that's what it's supposed to be, because it seems to be that they're almost pitching this as like Apple TV but better, and obviously the ability to run iPad apps and whatever, but it seems like they're really pushing the home entertainment theater kind of experience. And if they're not going to have Netflix, and I assume there are probably a couple of other companies that are also not going to push their streaming apps on here, like, that's gonna be kind of a big blow to the Vision Pro's launch. So yeah, I think Netflix found a real I'm just gonna go out on a limb here.
Because it is these like media companies that have been some of the biggest opponents to Apple's taking fees. Like, yeah, Netflix is the one that repeatedly tried to get around the 15%. Spotify was another big one, and then beyond that, I think I think Tinder was at it for a while, or maybe that was just on Android. I'm not sure. Yeah.
So
Hoopy said, I've just realized they're selling this as the next iPad/Mac iPhone, but in practice, it only looks like their second most expensive monitor. Yeah, I mean, it's
yeah,
it's an iPad, but it's on your face, and it can do remote desktop to a Mac. That's
yeah.
the pitch.
Which, to be fair, is exactly what I want out of it. That is the product that I want. I don't want to spend anywhere near that much money for it, but that is the product I want, is the remote desktop into a Mac. Assuming, of course, that it does the sorts of things that I want it to do, which I don't know has even been confirmed yet. Anyway, so for I was gonna say, I'm gonna go out on a limb and guess that Netflix was probably talking with Apple directly about this for probably a few months. And I bet that I would be shocked if they didn't even have a negotiation that covered specifically, like, we want, like, I'm sure Apple approached Netflix saying, please put your app on here, or we can expect your app, right? We'll even help you build it or whatever. Who knows? And I'm just imagining Netflix being in that position to say, you know what? They need us. We don't need them on this. So yeah, let's ask for the moon. Let's see if we can't get them to give us a better deal on this thing or that thing, and let's see if we can't push them. And when Apple did not succumb to that negotiating tactic, Netflix is like, all right, cool, we're calling your bluff. Let's see how the Vision Pro does when we're the first domino to fall, and there will probably be others. Because honestly, do you think Disney's jumping to do this? I mean, Apple and Disney have had some close relationships. I wouldn't be surprised if they've.
Oh, the Disney.
Oh, that's right. They do have a integrated thing. Yeah. So that's okay.
Yeah,
Disney's
Disney have an app. They're even going, like, you'll be able to watch like 3D movies in this from Disney Plus with like Dolby Vision stuff, which I saw again on the on the Meta Quest Reddit. They were like, oh, why don't we have this? It's like, that's because Meta doesn't care.
Yeah,
that's why.
But yeah, so I'm just gonna say, I still think there are probably going to be several other companies that turn around and say, yeah, we're just not going to do this. Like, that's it. We're just not going to do it with you. And if future Vision products end up selling well enough, every company will end up supporting it. But that's 2 years out. They have time. Yeah. Nobody needs to support this today. And a lot of them will probably support it via iPad app. I think a lot of people just aren't going to care about building a full, proper experience. And that being said, and I made this point elsewhere, day one, there's going to be a video player. Look, if anyone was sitting there going like, oh, this sucks, I don't want to watch a movie in a browser. I want to watch it in a nice, like, phony theater experience like the Daydream had. I'll tell you right now, guaranteed, there's going to be a basic video player. If you just pirate a video, stick it on the Vision Pro or wherever, you'll be able to watch it. Like,
yeah, you gotta wait for VLC to port, which I hope VLC does, and they charge like $40 or something. Because like, just really, really get those Vision Pro buyers for all they're worth. They want quality software. Make them pay for it.
Yeah,
they can pay for it. They paid $3,500.
Hoopy, bold of you to assume that files will be on this thing. I mean, if it's supposed to run like an iPad, then it has to. Presumably, it has to support at least some of the same basic functionality. And even if it didn't, I would expect this to be sort of like any other iOS app, where you can run like a little private server and upload files to apps.
That's what VLC does.
Yeah. So
in addition to reading from the files app.
Although
the one thing I did point out earlier was that the Vision Pro doesn't seem to have a USB port. So Not entirely clear how you get the files onto there.
I mean,
Except,
it's
I
gonna
guess
have to
through,
have a
like,
port somewhere.
has it?
Uh,
I don't know. It has the charging thing is
well,
like a MagSafe port. It's not
it's
like
gonna need a
data.
port because if
Yeah,
you need to
it's
do firmware updates, like
yeah. There's gonna be a diagnostic something somewhere
yeah,
like the Apple Watch, but I don't know if it's gonna be accessible. I don't know if
yeah,
anyone's answered that question.
it, somehow, some way, being able to do forced updates, diagnostics, stuff like that. Also development. Yes, you could do wireless, but you really want to do it wired. So I think it's safe to assume that there's a port somewhere. Maybe it goes through the power cable, maybe it's through somewhere else, but there's something. Um, let's see. So, yeah, I don't know that there's anything else to say on this, but I think it is kind of a funny situation to see Apple sort of at Netflix's mercy on this. And very likely, I think other companies will follow, if not already. Like, Netflix has spoken up about it. I'm betting that there's going to be a few other companies that they just don't say anything. Just one day someone's going to hop onto the store and be like, oh crap, I can't watch any of the Star Trek stuff on the Paramount app. That's Paramount, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I know you would know. Or, like, they're gonna have Disney. We don't know who else, but all we know for sure is Disney, and it could be a very short list after that. That being said, I could also see a few streaming companies maybe doing well by supporting this, but that's a different theory for a different time. But speaking of Apple hardware having some complications, anyone hearing about that Apple Watch situation?
Womp womp.
Yeah. So the extremely short TLDR on this is a company called Massimo, who cares? They sued Apple because Apple stuck a blood oxygen sensor into its watches for the last few years, and that's something that Massimo has a very, very good patent on. And Apple basically said, we don't care about your patent. And then the court said, oh, you probably should. So, yeah, as it turns out, this has become a big problem for Apple. The patent office basically, or, well, not patent office, sorry, the USITC, that's what it is. The International Trade Commission basically stomped on Apple and said, you cannot sell devices that are using a blood oxygen sensor until you work this stuff out. And so future devices are apparently not going to come with a sensor, and Apple has to disable the sensor in existing devices. Hey, Christopher, how's it going? So evidently the Series 9 and Ultra 2 smartwatches are no longer going to be available for sale. And presumably the next devices that Apple launches just won't have the O2 sensor. That is just the way things go.
It's so funny that they're fighting this. Just, I don't know. It's very funny. Like, Apple will, like, make its own product worse, so it doesn't, pay whatever even if it's a couple dollars per unit. Like, I don't know. I know why, because you don't get to be the world's first $1 trillion company, paying licensing fees. It is very silly though.
Well, this is sort of like trademarks, where but in reverse. The moment that you give in and start paying a license fee, like, at that point everyone's going to see it and go, oh well, we can start charging you too. Apple has to stay true. They have to just refuse to pay anybody what they owe them. Otherwise, that's the end of Apple. Yeah, so this is honestly, I think this is a terrible look for Apple. And
it's very silly.
And this is going to bite them pretty hard, because this is a sensor that was a part of their actual marketing for the Apple Watch. I mean, this was one of the things that they even used as kind of like a highlight for why you should buy the Apple Watch over Android watches, because it has all these health features and things like that. So people who've already purchased these watches are now going to have a pretty good case for a false advertising class action lawsuit. And like this is something any lawyer should win. This, I think, is open and shut. It will be a quick, easy thing. Apple will either, if they're smart, they will not fight this. They should let this either they should get ahead of it and try to offer people some sort of compensation in advance, or I guess they can wait for the class action suit to come, at which point I guess they try to settle for as little as possible. But there's no conceivable way they fight this.
Yeah, I don't have any other. No, I mean, I don't have any other thoughts besides this is just a very silly situation. Probably should have been resolved far before getting to this point. But yeah, good times.
Yeah, that's exactly it. This should have been resolved. It's really, I kind of wonder if this is something that's going to come back to bite Apple repeatedly in terms of like burned reputation and possibly even. I wonder if this will set any sort of legal reputation. Sort of like, will companies ever get together and maybe like sue Apple on the basis that they're actually sort of the other version of a patent troll, where they routinely just use other people's stuff and do everything they can to avoid ever paying the patents, including just straight up ignoring them. Because a reputation like that could actually, I think, hurt them too. At least in the purview of judges. Carson's saying it's Apple, though. They get lucky with legal stuff. I mean, this is proving the exception. Like, they're not getting lucky here. Apple's getting hurt hard with this one.
Good times at Apple.
Yeah. So, speaking of Apple taking things away or not giving things that people want and expect, and this one's kind of a quickie-ish, but as we all know, the EU has laid down the hammer on Apple and basically said you have to make third-party app stores a thing. And so Apple is giving into this, and coming, evidently it is March 7th is, I guess, the target date. But Apple's going to be launching in the EU, they're going to allow third-party app stores to exist on the App Store. I believe that's how this is supposed to work. I'm not entirely sure on that. But it will be EU only. It's not going to be in the US. It's not going to be in other markets, other countries. It's just going to be EU. And I'm not sure, but I think there were a couple of other countries that are also laying down similar rules, so they'll probably get the same treatment in time. But yeah, this is actually going to be a thing. And Corbin, do you have anything to say on this before I make a quick rant?
No, just I don't know. If I was Apple, I'd well, what I'm about to say would hinge on the United States doing something, but I'm not entirely sure that would happen. But I know there's like some bills in progress somewhere to make Apple do something similar to this. It's kind of wild to me that Apple is choosing to just wait out the clock. It like per country on this. In a way that will make maintaining this much more difficult and probably more complicated for both them and for developers who would want to use this. I don't know. It's just surprising me that they would. Well, not surprising. It's interesting to me that they're going to have different rules for this in different countries, and they're gonna have to deal with each of those individually. That seems like it'd be a lot easier to just open the floodgates, but do it in a way that benefits you more, and in a way that works the same in all countries. But they need the App Store cut more, I guess. So that's what's happening.
So, yeah, I mean, I agree with all of that. Especially because, yes, the mere fact that they could end up having to maintain completely different sets of rules and policies for each country, which is going to make app distribution across countries also a lot more complicated. That
works out for Apple.
It'll well, it on its surface it works out for Apple, but if you have a lot of developers saying, wow, it's so hard for me to distribute apps to the entire world over Apple's platform because on this place I have to follow this set of laws, and on this place they make me not distribute the app through this mean, and when we're talking about in Africa I have to do this other thing instead, and over here I have to use this other set of APIs that talks to this government office for whatever reason. Like, if that becomes a thing, they actually run the risk of having people saying, you know what, I'd rather build for Android because I just have to make one damn app and shove it on Google Store and it's done. That's actually a really bad situation for them. So I hadn't even considered that, but that's actually possibly a really terrible way for Apple to be running this. But I also think it's just bad publicity at this point. I mean, we're looking at a scenario where Apple cannot come out of this not looking terrible, because it will from here on out. Like every publication that ever has any excuse to talk about this stuff is going to say, oh, well, yeah, in the EU you can have Fortnite installed on your iPhone. You can't do that in the US. Sorry, US, you're being held hostage. This is going to become a very terrible look for Apple. I think when it was just like one nascent country, because I believe I forget where it is. I want to say South Korea, but I think that's wrong. Anyway, there was one Asian country that's kind of also laid down a law about this. And I'm not sure that theirs has even gone into effect yet. So don't quote me on that.
I think it was South Korea.
It probably was. Anyway, so whatever the case may be, like, it's one thing when it's a relatively small market, all things considered. It's a whole different story when we're talking about the entirety of the EU.
Mm-hmm.
And this sort of overarching behavior where Apple is literally acting as the villain in this scenario, that's going to look so bad on them. If I was Apple, what I would have done at this point is just come out and said, all right, we do have to do this. We have a deadline. We don't think that this is the right thing, but we are going to open it up to the world. However, we're going to do it in stages. We're going to start with the EU because there is a deadline. We're going to open things up. There will be third-party app stores. We're going to have special policies, blah, blah, blah. And later in the same year, we'll open it to the rest of the world. That would have been their smart play. That would have gotten ahead of any legal obligations. It would have gotten ahead of countries that are possibly thinking about enforcing their own restrictions. And it would have given them the opportunity to sort of say, oh yeah, you know, we tried it in the EU in this particular way. We found that there's this one really big problem. We're not going to make the rest of the world suffer through that particular problem. We'll fix it for them. And then we'll solve it in the EU in whatever way we have to. That would have been the way to play this. Come right out and say that you're going to make this a thing for everybody. Instead, right now, there's somebody telling everyone, you know, there's Mark Gurman telling everyone that this is just how it's going to be, that they're going to split up the app stores. That is not the image that they need right now. Not for this. So, yeah, I think Apple botched this horribly.
Definitely fun to watch, and especially because they folded on USB-C worldwide when that became a requirement in a few countries, but obviously it's a lot easier to do per region software stuff than hardware. Apple just doesn't want to make that many SKUs.
Yeah. Though I do kind of wonder if this is also going to become one of those things that they have more and more complications with. Like, if somebody moves from the US to the EU and they're like, hey, I'm here, you need to let my phone do this by law. Like, I'm not going to go buy a new phone. You have to let me do this. It's what the law says. So Apple has to have a way of unlocking this. And if Apple has a way of unlocking this, it may, you know, depending on how clever they get with it or how clever other people are, I wouldn't be surprised if there was someone who finds a sneaky way that they can trigger access to the EU market for US people.
Yeah.
And who knows, maybe this is just something that even with a VPN you can sneak by it. I doubt that, but maybe. We'll see. Kids are going to be begging their parents for a vacation to Europe so they can install Fortnite. Not wrong. Actually, it'd be funny if there are people out there who are like, oh, all you need to do is activate your phone using a VPN, and yeah, then you're just on the EU store and you can do whatever you want.
I do expect Apple to make it like as difficult as possible to do this in America. It is funny though that Microsoft was just forced to do basically make Windows more tolerable.
Yeah.
In Europe, they weren't allowed to be as aggressive with Microsoft Edge and the stuff in the start menu, and the activation method for that is just like registry thing somewhere. It's like the easiest thing in the world to do. I don't expect Apple to do that, but it is kind of funny the difference there.
Yeah. So I will say, like, at this stage, it's not that I'm ready to throw money at any Apple devices anyway, outside of, you know, laptops, which I need. But I gotta say, I'd be kind of disinclined to pick up any Apple devices if I can't sideload apps on them anyway. So yeah, this is one thing at this stage I even feel kind of comfortable saying I just don't want to have an iPhone or iPad if I can't sideload. But yeah, we'll see. And I do think that would open up the market more for them, but hey, whatever. Apple gonna do Apple things.
I just don't care. Got my very locked down phone and tablet. It's fine. I would like
Corbin corporate shill.
Yeah. I would like my UTM emulator on there without fucking around with the alt store. That'd be kind of cool. That's about it.
Your check from Apple's in the mail.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's honestly, I do have more I could say on this, but I'm just going to leave it at that for now. I have a feeling we're going to have a lot more about this coming up in a couple of months once this March 7th deadline hits. But in the meantime, or at least until the next big part of the story comes, we can leave it at that. But that leads us into possibly the biggest screw up of this week. And this is kind of a bit of a multi-part story, but in the US, Apple has been told that they have to now offer external payment options as a part of the store. And boy, did they decide to screw this one up. If you haven't, well, I'll get to that in a second. But yeah, so really quick, as kind of a precursor on this, it is worth noting that Apple did try to appeal this at the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court declined. Very notably, Epic also tried to do an appeal so that they could force the App Store to be open, or for iPhones to support sideloading or something. The Supreme Court also declined to take up that appeal. Frankly, I think the Supreme Court fucked up. Sorry for the language, but yeah, I think that was a huge mistake.
The Supreme Court doing something dumb? I can't believe this.
I know. Yeah, they're terrible.
Do any of them know what an iPhone is? Quick question.
I'm sure they know how good the checks coming from Apple are. So that.
Yeah, I know, because I'm also kidding.
Yes.
Sorry.
No, that's good. But yeah, so anyway, the Supreme Court should have at least listened to Epic's argument. I think they screwed up. But anyway, so basically Apple is required to allow external payment options for apps that are acquired through the App Store. Unfortunately, the way that they did this, and if you notice the title, I called it out right there. This is the ultimate example of this belongs as a post on MaliciousCompliance, on the subreddit MaliciousCompliance.
Yeah.
Apple's method of doing this is so comically evil. It actually, this also kind of belongs on AITA. It is it is Apple basically being a true villain in the way that they decided to go about this. So the basic summary of this is, if you are a developer, you can put in your app a single screen. Yes, it is one of the requirements is it can only be one screen, nowhere else. It can be a link that goes to your website where you can sell in-app purchases to customers. Now, there are some extra complications here. One of them is Apple wants to take a cut of this. For the first year, I believe it's first year, they take a 27% commission. Yes, 27% commission on anything that is sold through your site in the form of in-app purchases for apps. In the second year and following, it drops to 12%. Very notably, Apple's current take, if the sales are made through the App Store, is 30 and 15 on the same timelines. So yes, these are 3% lower than if you sell through Apple. 3%. That is almost exactly the going rate for doing a lot of or what a lot of credit card processors already
credit
take.
card transactions. Yeah.
So yeah, you actually will not save anything by selling through your site. There may be other reasons that you want to sell through your site, including you might be selling, or you might be doing discount codes. You might be doing other deals. There's a lot of reasons and a lot of
regional pricing that maybe Apple doesn't handle all that well themselves.
Yeah, exactly. There are a ton of reasons, very legitimate, like not price related reasons, or variations on price related reasons why you might want to sell through your site instead of selling through Apple. But Apple is trying to basically force you to just give them the same amount of money. And Apple's reason for this, I wish I was kidding, is because they need to make sure that you are taxed properly. I'm not kidding. That is one of the actual justifications that they gave for this. Then there is a monumentally huge list of all the other requirements. I've read through this. It has a whole lot of stuff about who is and is not eligible to even use external links. You have to apply for this, get Apple's permission before you can even do external links. And they basically, as part of the application, they require you to allow them to audit your sales. They didn't say it wasn't the Apple tax. I know, right? They have an API for how you have to do all of this stuff. The list goes on and on. It is really just the definition of abusive. And given the court's ruling, I actually think that this is the definition of bad faith. Because this is in no way, shape, or form what the court was expecting when it issued instructions for Apple to open up external sales.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, if the courts like didn't word their requirements well enough for this to happen, it's just really very, like you said, the most malicious compliance I think would ever be possible under any circumstances. Like this is far worse than what Epic was able to complain at Google for, which is the like multi-step process in enabling sideloading on an Android phone and then sideloading the APK, which also shows like scary warnings, but not nearly like this. This is probably bigger than the warning you get, like turning off like the protected mode that they have for more vulnerable accounts. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, let me read this because it is pretty wild. This is a screen that apparently Apple will show you, or at least a early mock-up of it. I'm not really sure, but it says you're about to leave the app and go to an external website. Apple is not responsible for the privacy or security of purchases made on the web. Any accounts or purchases made outside of this app will be managed by the developer. Example name. Your App Store account, stored payment method, and related features such as subscription management and refund requests will not be available. And you can continue or cancel. Honestly, I'm a little bit amazed that they didn't color the buttons. Like the continue button should have been like a puke green, while the cancel button should have had like party balloons, and you know,
the cancel button is like small gray text in like the very corner of the screen, like Microsoft does when you're setting up Edge.
No. You want the cancel button to be big and hittable. The continue button should have been the hard to reach thing. Like the continue button should be a tiny little check mark button up in the top corner. It can't be at the bottom where people can reach it. It has to be hard to reach. Like, that would have been the Apple way. So, anyway, yes, this is what they're trying to pull off. It honestly, I think Apple is probably going to get sued over this. I'm genuinely guessing within the month, because the terms of this are so comically abusive. They are wildly over the top, and exactly like you said, this is worse than what Epic went after Google for. Nobody could look at that set of terms and make nobody could look at that and not think that that's Apple trying to scare and force developers out of using any sort of external payment option.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just don't see this. I don't see this lasting, to be honest. But even if it does, how many developers will ever use this? Carson, maybe they want to get sued. That is an interesting possibility. I'd love to know what strategy that plays into, because I think this only ends with Apple losing. Oh, sorry, I thought you were you'd have thoughts there.
No. Head empty.
Yeah, so, and at a bare minimum, I'm sure Apple's going to eventually be forced to relax some of these things, like the thing where the link can only exist on one screen in the entire app. Oh, which very notably, it cannot be on any sort of interstitial, modals, pop-ups, anything like that. It has to be a single screen somewhere in the app. And that doesn't mean that you can have multiple paths to that screen, but it can only be one screen, which is wild. That's
so funny.
That is an interesting decision to make. And again, like, honestly, I'll paste the link here in chat. If anyone is feeling so compelled, just read through that list of bullet points. It just keeps sounding more draconian. So yeah, I genuinely look forward to seeing the drama that will eventually come out of this. But in the meantime, this is supposedly what the world's going to have in terms of Apple's external payments. So I look forward to seeing how developers react to this. I just cannot see any sort of outcome that's positive.
Yeah.
And the fact that Apple's doing this, I think, is, again, it's going to irritate developers. There are going to be a lot of developers that have really negative takes on this. And, like, as a developer, I kind of wonder how many of them are going to look at this and go, you know what? Maybe I don't want to work with Apple as much as I used to. Because if they're doing this today, what are they going to do in the store tomorrow? Like, you know, Google does some crappy things on its stores, but not this bad.
Yeah, this is the end result of all of our, like, anti-competitive stuff going on in the courts instead of, you know, in federal agencies or Congress or any of the other places it's probably supposed to be hashed out. We just get these half measures that aren't really enough, and that's just what's going to keep happening until Congress wants to do something, and that's not going to happen for things completely unrelated to any tech, basically. They just don't feel like doing that. They can barely pass military spending at this point, and that's the one thing that they used to be really good at. So, yeah, having a fun time.
Yeah.
Great country.
I also feel inclined to just call this out. I can't wait for the first time that a developer decides that what they're going to do is put really expensive IAPs on the App Store. That way they can encourage people, because, by the way, you are allowed one, and I think Apple actually made a mistake here. You are allowed to show comparisons. Like, if you go, basically tell customers, if you go to our site, you could spend $5 instead of here on the App Store where we're going to charge you $15.
Which is what Epic was doing. They were like, hey, you can. Well, I don't know if they were showing it in the app, but that was their selling point. Was like, you can buy it here. Also, if you just buy it directly from us, you get like more V-Bucks, whatever, with the same amount of money.
Yeah. So what I'm kind of expecting here, or what I think might end up happening, I think there's going to be a company that decides to get really wild with this and basically say, come to our site and you can buy the in-app purchases. But once you're on the site, they then say, listen, we actually have this other thing you can do. It's even better. Instead of buying the in-app purchase for the app, you can buy a badge that comes with our social network. When you buy this badge, it gives you the same amount of, or more of, whatever currency or thing, and we just give that to you. That comes free. Don't worry. What you're buying is the badge, but you get that other currency for free with your badge purchase.
Right.
And then when Apple comes along and is like, oh, well, we see that somebody went out and you use the API to give them some expendable currency, then the company's like, oh no, they didn't buy any of the in-app purchases. But they did buy something else. Sorry, but you don't get that. You don't get commissions off of those things. I have a feeling that there's going to be more than a few developers that try this, and I'm sure Apple will kick them off the store. They will then proceed to sue Apple and blah blah blah. Like, this cycle will continue. Frankly, I wouldn't even be surprised if Epic ends up doing something like that. But yeah, I see loopholes in their system, and it's going to look bad when the fights inevitably come. Also, frankly, I think Apple demanding to have auditing records, that's going to be a big fight too. There's going to be a lot of fights that come from these terms. And honestly, I'm going to just get my popcorn ready for that one.
Yeah. Once again, I'd love if Congress did something, but nope.
I don't think Congress is even necessary for this one. The Department of Justice, by the way, for those that don't know, the Department of Justice is also, they've got an inquiry going into Apple. They're looking to pursue these same issues.
And Google, they're doing the legal fight with Google over, I think it's specifically like, I don't know if it's Play Store rules right now. I think it's still the like Google search ad revenue stuff.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I thought it was all search, and I think they're also doing one for Chrome, or did that one already finish up?
It might be Chrome too. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I can't. Well, I know. Yeah, there was one over Google's advertising business. I know that. I swear there was one over Chrome, but I'm not totally positive. And I didn't know that the Department of Justice was getting onto Google's Play Store, but maybe they are. It's weird how it's hard to keep track of all these.
It's almost like we don't regulate capitalism enough.
Yeah. Diablo, how bad is Google kicking themselves? I honestly, after the results of the court case, I think a lot, because they screwed up going with the jury case big time. But that's technically now old news. Though we haven't seen the outcome of that one yet, which I thought was supposed to have already started this year. Maybe not. I know it was supposed to start in January. Anyway, so that's all I had to say on this. I assume
I've already, yeah, I already said this is so dumb.
Yeah. So yeah, anyway, that also is the end of the topics I had prepped. Was there anything else you felt like talking about?
Nope, I'm good to just go get food now. I'm pretty hungry.
Yeah, I figured you've had that sound for the last half hour that you're
Oh,
checked out.
well, it's also because I'm playing Tetris right now.
I should have guessed. Should have guessed. See, I was thinking, oh crap, he must. Is he hungry? Is he tired? I feel for him. I didn't mean to keep you if you're like no, playing Tetris.
No, I've got my I had my Switch hooked up to my capture card last night, so I have Tetris on the Game Boy open right now. Yeah.
Of course.
Here I can switch my camera actually. Let's see. Settings, video, HDMI capture. Okay, it's reversed, I think, but you can watch me play Tetris.
Yes, Corbin's working on trying to get to the kill screen. That's the
way that's not happening. The Game Boy Tetris is very annoying.
No, believe me, I remember. I actually played it when it was on a Game Boy.
Yeah, I got too spoiled by Tetris Effect. I'm like, I tried to open this. Like, wait, how do I save the block? Oh, you can't. You just got to deal with it.
Yeah. I'm also learning you're maybe not that great at Tetris, but
I'm not amazing at it.
Anyway, so we'll just call that one a good stopping point. Mm-hmm. Hey Brawl, welcome back.
It's true.
I saw your comment earlier, but
all the cool kids do come watch Corbin play Tetris, mirrored through the capture.
Oh, it's not mirrored.
Oh, I guess it's just mirrored in my Google Meet preview, I guess.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's interesting.
But yeah, the words, score, level, lines, yeah, those are all correct. So
interesting.
Fun. And Nils shows up here at the tail end.
Yeah, everyone came to watch me play Tetris. Play Tetris poorly.
Indeed. Wait, what? Oh my god, man, you're killing me. Okay, we're gonna stop.
I didn't have a spot for.
Yeah, you did. On the far right side, you could have put the team.
It's fine. Look, I cleared it. It's fine.
Yeah, you got there, but man.
It's fine. I'm getting there.
Okay. Anyway, before this becomes us bullying Corbin.
Right. What else is new? Am I right?
Yeah, pretty much. Anyway, so Corbin, is there anything that while you're blocking down, is there anything you would like to permit, push, promote, pitch?
Nope. Just subscribe to the spacebar at spacebar.news. Put your email in. I don't give it to anyone. Or you can just subscribe to it in your RSS. That's very cool.
Indeed.
Yeah. I will eventually write more things there. I haven't in at least a week. So that's cool.
Mills, isn't that the author of the famous newsletter, The Space Bar?
Oh yeah, very famous. I fucked up here. I wasn't looking. See, I looked at the chat and I messed up. That's what happens.
Yeah, that's how it goes.
Oh, I should have put that over there. God damn it.
Yeah. Well, it's Tetris. That's how the blocks crumble. All right. Anyway, so for those of you who are new to the channel, I will be game streaming this weekend as usual, Saturday and Sunday from roughly about 5 p.m. Pacific time till about 8 p.m. Pacific time, give or take. Let's see, and we'll be back next week with Brawl. Yep, you came back just as we had run out of topics. But yeah, I will be back next week, probably with Corbin. I assume. We'll see.
Probably.
We don't know any reason you won't be here. Let's say that. And yeah, so we'll be back with the RambleCast next week, and you know the drill. So with that, oh, by the way, if anyone would like to support the channel, there are links down below to Cash App, Streamlabs, and Patreon. Thank you, of course, to those who already support the channel. You keep us hugely, or well, keep me able to keep this going. Thanks go to Carson, Diablo, Austin, David, and Curvy Mermaid. Carson, did we talk about the Google layoffs? No, actually I didn't. I actually don't have a lot to say on that outside of, wow, are they screwing up? I mean, I have already talked about this a few times in the past. The worst thing you can do in this economic situation, in my opinion, is start firing a bunch of people. Because Google is in a position where they really actually could benefit immensely by working on their product portfolio, getting lots of new stuff built. That's something that they're not doing, and I think it's going to actually hurt them much more in the long run.
Yeah, it's just frustrating to watch. The layoffs that we would normally associate with the recession, but there's no recession going on, supposedly.
I was gonna say, wait, what?
It's just, yeah, it's just like, no, we just feel like it this week, you know. We got to bump up the stock price by 3%, and we don't have any new ideas, so let's just get rid of some people. Easy.
Yeah, this is not a necessity. They don't need to be letting go of people, and it, like, as they're having problems with products already kind of not performing as well as they could, this is something Google could address, and they're really not, and it's just gonna make them look worse and worse. And we've successfully broken Corbin's run.
Yeah, you distracted me too much.
You made it to level 5.
Congrats. Yeah, I got 54 lines. I think that's the best I've done on Game Boy Tetris. I'll play Tetris Effect next week.
Never thought watching someone play Tetris can be this entertaining. Brawl, that is what Twitch has proven. Watching people playing games is fun.
The next, yeah, we gotta get Cody at Twitch, and then we can do the multiplayer NES games or whatever else is on here.
Oh, Carson, and yeah, they're doing daily layoff announcements. That is weird, because in a way,
well, they're not announcements.
Yeah.
They said like a month ago we're gonna do layoffs, and then we get the news report when a bunch of people get laid off at once, and they all email The Verge. That's when we find out.
Yeah, and what we're not finding out is the numbers, which honestly I think that this is a bad thing for Google, because they're putting themselves in a situation where they're kind of revealing that, or they're keeping it in the news. I think that's their mistake. They're keeping it in the news by doing it the way that they're doing, by laying off batches of people every day for what, a week or however long it's gonna, we don't really know. At Brawl, do I still use Wave Oz's music? Yes, I actually am. But yeah, by keeping these, or by continually laying off batches of people, honestly, it's just keeping it in the news longer. And I don't know that that's helping the stock price. Maybe it is, but actually, is it? I haven't looked. Let's see, pulling up Alphabet. Well, it certainly doesn't look great. They've gained almost nothing over the past week, like literally less than $1 in value. Even though over the past month has been kind of iffy. So yeah, I think that this is going poorly for them. If they were trying to like win on the stocks, they failed. They failed pretty horribly. So yeah, I honestly think this is hurting Google more than anything, especially since there are so many Googlers who are stepping up and just speaking out about they're not happy with the direction of the company. Whether they were fired or not is, sort of besides the point. Yeah, this is just not looking good for them.
Yeah.
Austin, you bought a bunch of prototype pixels from a guy. I know you're kidding, but that's hilarious. But yeah, anyway. Trying really quickly, just reading comments, making sure I didn't miss something. All right. Anyway, yeah. So I think that wraps it up for us today. Hey, it was a solid 2-hour stream. So, oh, you're not kidding. They're old prototypes. Wow. Huh. That's unusual.
You want Austin? You want to write an article on the spacebar?
Carson had a question. You had a question on the Apple stuff earlier. What was it? I don't know that I saw it. Let's see, and also Brawl's earlier comment, guess YouTube shorts are so horrible you're easily entertained. I keep meaning to make shorts for this channel. It should just happen. I don't know if it would just be gameplay footage or if it would be quick cuts from RambleCast, but both would be a good idea. Oh god, and Brawl's hacking his ID class. That's trouble. Carson, question. Austin, how to take advantage of laid off Google engineers who can't afford their Silicon Valley apartments. Oh, okay. So Carson's question, for the Apple third-party in-app purchasing, did they say how they would even know whether a developer is self-reporting correctly or not? That was what the audits are about.
Yeah, well, there's audits, and then I think they said somewhere in there that whenever they implement an API for this reporting, that the app will have to integrate that sometime quickly. And that will be the reporting method.
Kind of. So the way this works, here's what they have told us that thus far. When somebody hits that link, it reports to Apple that that somebody is traveling out to your website. When this happens, they don't say what happens when it happens, but they're keeping track of it for 1 week. So basically, this is kind of like how Amazon affiliates work, where if somebody follows an affiliate link, they keep track of you for, I think Amazon's is 2 weeks? I don't remember now. But whatever it is, they basically keep it in their system for some period of time. And then if you make a purchase, then it credits that person. Presumably it would work the same way with Apple. But of course, what happens is then if somebody goes to your site, purchases something, then it is on you as the developer to retain records of what they purchased, how much money they spent, whatever. And then Apple, as part of its agreement with you, they can ask for records. They can audit you to make sure that you are in compliance, and they say so that they can charge interest and ensure that you're being taxed properly. Yes, they are actually claiming that this is a tax issue because apparently you can't report your own taxes. And then when the purchase is completed, a purchase on your website is completed, there is an external API. In fact, it is somewhere in here. Okay, I don't know which of these says it, but anyway, they do have an API. So, and Google actually has something just like this already. But they have an API that you call from your website, and basically you say, here's the customer, here's what has to be granted to them in the app. And so then it becomes a consumable, or well, sorry, not it. It becomes whatever type of in-app purchase it is for that app. So if you're buying currency, it's a consumable. If it's a subscription, then it goes in as a subscription, whatever it is. Basically, Apple's got has an API for the website to call into to say, give this thing to this customer. And at that point, Apple has a record of effectively saying, oh, okay, well, you obviously sold this to them, blah, blah, blah. So if it turns out at the end of whatever period, it looks like, you know, Apple's expecting their cut to have been, let's say, $1,000, and you end up saying, oh, well, you know, I've been keeping track of records, I only owe you $300. Apple can be like, yeah, well, we've got all these purchases here. We see what it is. We think we know what you owe us. Send us the money. Like, or either send us the money or send us records so that we can double check everything. So that's how Apple's supposed to keep everybody in check. So could developers lie? Absolutely. And that's what I was talking about before, where obviously there are ways that they can work around the terms of this deal. There are ways that they can lie. Obviously they could just send Apple false records. They could also show that they could make up like, oh yeah, all these people, they actually gave discount codes or whatever else. There's a lot they can do. They have the flexibility, but at the end of the day, if Apple decides that they don't like what's happening, they can just throw you out of the App Store. Or they could revoke your external link privileges. Entitlement link privileges. Mm-hmm. There's a lot that could happen here. Apple still holds the power, but developers could screw them over if they wanted to. It's more likely that developers will just sort of skim a little bit extra off the top while mostly following the rules. I have a feeling that's how this will actually just end up going.
Or they just won't use it because this is insane.
Yeah, that too.
They'll just like, you know, behave exactly as they were before, where if it's worth it to try to do this, then they'll just not put any kind of purchasing stuff in the app.
Yeah. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if this does kind of encourage a lot of companies to start doing sort of like like I described before. Use whatever methods you can to get somebody to go to your website, at which point you say, okay, you know, you're here now, Let's just tell you what we really offer. And then basically just give people much better prices, much better discounts. Even if you pay Apple up front for the first time people come, you make a strong point of saying, just come here for the future, buy everything from us. We don't even involve Apple after that. And every company's smarter if they do it that way, because paying Apple's fees is not worth it. They can get around it. But anyway, yeah, sorry. Austin's right. I'm holding Corbin hostage, so
this is my punishment for playing Tetris. Although I did order food and it's almost ready, so I do need to go now.
Okay, well that's perfect, because I've done enough of my wrap up. Again, if you'd like to support the channel, links down below. I'll be gaming this weekend, so come by and check it out if you don't already. Anyway, with that, thank you all for coming by, hanging out, as my voice suddenly gets caught up in whatever. Thank you for coming by, hanging out, and being part of the show. Love that you're all here and enjoying the show, hopefully. Thanks, of course, to Corbin for putting up with all this BS. And we'll see you all next time. Good night, everybody.
Bye.